So here is the fuel tap from the Ferret, and I've just removed it. I don't know whether you can see, but there is something wedged up in there. So we're going to get this tap taken apart and find out what that is. So the reason I'm rebuilding this fuel tap is because we've had a bit of a fuel leak from it. It's only apparent when the petrol tank is very full and it's the level of the petrol in the tank is higher than the fuel tap. Then it weeps past the cork gasket and we get a small fuel leak here, so it obviously needs to be resolved. Very easy to take the tap apart, just remove the locking nut and the main nut and spring from the back of the fuel tap, and the front can then be removed from the tap and the gasket removed as well. So you can see the gasket in there doesn't look in great shape. See, hopefully you can just about see there should be 5 holes open, become clear as we clean this up, in the gasket to match the 5 holes in the tap. So one is completely blocked, the one for the reserve tank. And yeah, let's see if we can get this gasket out of here. And it's just a cork gasket, and it's clearly hardened over time, dried out and basically fallen apart in there. So we're going to have to get a small screwdriver or something here to pry the gasket out. I'll try and take it out fairly gently so it comes out in one piece hopefully, and you'll be able to see the shape of it. Okay, so you can see the 5 holes that should be open in the tap there, and you also see there's some of that junk stuck down there in the fuel supply line. So that's obviously deposits that have been brought up from the tank or from the fuel lines. So we need to clear out any big chunks of dirt, rust, any other general mess that's in there, and get the tap cleaned out properly. So just give it a quick round with the screwdriver and remove any large deposits or anything that are on the tap, and then we'll be able to clean it up. Give it a bit of a soak in some descaler or something similar to remove the rest of the gunk that's on there. Good, so that's most of the large bits of dirt and stuff removed from that. So now we can get that in some descaler and get it cleaned up. And yeah, we can have a nice new cork gasket to replace this one. It's not in a good shape. So to start with, what I'm going to do is put this in some descaler. This is basically an acid that's going to remove any of the grime and that's on the tap, and we'll get all the way through the galleries and clean those as well. I'm going to put a dilute solution of this on initially, leave it overnight, and then what we'll do is get it cleaned up pretty much as best we can following that, and then I'll put a neat solution on it just for sort of 10-15 minutes, which will bring the brass up nice and clean. So by the magic of video, we'll put this aside overnight. So once the tap's been cleaned up and it's had its second clean in the descaler just to clean up the brass, you can see this is what we've ended up with. And you can also see there's been an issue with the machining, whereby when it was manufactured it was machined across with a mill, and that's left kind of this channel cut out of the back, which isn't correct. I can't say it's the cause of the leak, but it's definitely not going to help a good seal for the new gasket. So I'm going to get that machined, and you can see here once it's machined that the back of the fuel tap is nice and flat. So we're ready to put a new gasket in. So here we can see the old gasket. This wasn't in good shape, and here I've got a new gasket, which is a nitrile rubber and cork gasket. So what we're going to do is get this fitted in the fuel tap, and what we're going to need is a little bit of Vaseline to put on the cork gasket to aid its fitting and make sure it provides a good seal. You can see there the nice machine surface that where we've cleaned the tap up, and I've checked all the galleys and everything is clean and good to go. So here's the gasket, which we've put some Vaseline on, and it's ready to fit in the tap. And you'll see that it is very slightly oversized to the opening in the tap. This just help it become a good fit inside the tap body. And you can see that the new gasket has two small lugs on the side which fit in to the cutouts in the side of the tap body and stop the cork gasket from spinning in there when the tap's turned. And the 5 holes obviously line up with the 5 holes in the tap body. And the way these taps actually work is fuel comes in from the fuel tank through one of the bottom 2 connections on the tap, comes up through one of the holes, flows actually through a hole in the handle itself, which I'm just fitting here, and out through the other hole and up through the single connection to the fuel filter at the top of the tap. So just going to replace the spring in the back, which obviously maintains a certain pressure on the cork gasket at all times, and has a nut on the back. Now really the correct sort of tightness of this I always do to just to achieve a good feel really on the tap itself. You can do the nut up to fully compress the spring and then back it off half a turn or something like that. Should be sufficient. And then fit the small locking nut on the back. Now I had a small issue with the locking nut here. I couldn't seem to find a really good fit with the tools I've got here for both the main nut on the tap and the locking nut, which kind of caused some issues. So what I've had to do is put some locking compound thread locker on the threads there, as well as put the locking nut on, because I couldn't really get a pair of spanners or sockets or something in there to do up the main nut and the locking nut tight enough to stop them spinning on the thread and undoing. So just put a small amount of thread locker on, and I've done the locking nut up on the back there as tight so you can reasonably do it with the tools I've got to hand. So once that's done up, we'll just get a cloth and clean up the excess thread locking compound on the back of the tap, and we should be done really with this job. Hopefully you found the video useful. Simple job this one really, but quite useful just to see how it's done. Any comments or questions, please leave them in the comments below this video. Always pleased to hear other people's opinions of how to do things, whether you think I've done it correctly or not, other ways of doing things. And that's the fuel tap rebuilt, ready for refitting in the Ferret. Thanks a lot for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe.